This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. If you haven't seen what's happening in New York City, it's a good time to take a look for yourself because there's a portal in New York City. Now, I'm not saying that you can go up to this portal and you can teleport or time travel, but what I am telling you is that this is the normalization of ultimately the things that we see them trying to do at places like Cern. The things that you've seen and haven't even recognized or realized that you've been seeing in movies going back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, movies like Stargate, movies that we see now currently that have multiverses, TV shows like Stranger Things or series on Netflix like Stranger Things that have the upside down. That large Hadron Collider that they use in Stranger Things is the same thing as CERN. And when they're shooting a hole in the wall in Stranger Things, people just go, oh, that's really interesting. And then suddenly they see the upside down and they see these demons and these possessed people. They go, oh, yeah, that's a show. And then you go over and look at CERN and you're like, wait, what are they trying to do at CERN? Well, they're like, well, it's scientific, but we'll tell you what we're trying to do. We're trying to open up a hole. And they're like, what does that mean? Open up a hole. They're like, don't worry about it. It's science. You don't understand. And literally what they're trying to do is tear through the universe to bring over the spiritual realm and mix it and merge it with the physical realm. So the same things, in other words, that they summon when they do these blood rituals that we all see, right? We all see them. Let's just talk in layman's terms. We see them do rituals, right? They do their big circle, their pentagram, and we just go, okay, they're Satanists, right? Well, what they do in these rituals, and the reason that they do these blood sacrifices is because they summon spirits from the spiritual realm, wicked, evil spirits. They want to bring that forth over here to this dimension. Again, the physical realm. They want to bring over what's in the spiritual realm to the physical realm. And in order to do that, they're going to need portals, right? So it's not a coincidence that all portals for time travel and all these movies that we've seen are these giant circles, right? These giant doorways, gateways. And this is what they're conditioning you for. So in New York City, they have this up right now, and I'll show it to you. And of course, they tell you it's in the name of art, and everybody thinks it's the coolest thing, and they're going there and standing in front of it. And again, no, you cannot jump through it. It's just a screen for now. But this is how conditioning works. And if you understand how they manufacture human behavior, then you'll start saying, oh, now I can see why they're doing this. But you have to be able to understand that they manufacture us like cattle, okay? Most of the things that we believe is true, we only believe because we were told these things or saw it on a Lie-O-Vision box or read about it in an institution called school. All things that they control, so they control our perception of reality. We need to get more biblical here and understand what these wicked people are trying to do when we see them telling us they're doing stuff in the name of science. So take a look at what's happening in New York. This, again, is the normalization of things you've heard about already. Things about multiverses, portals, etc., etc. Look.
Well, if you ever wanted to make the trip to Ireland but couldn't afford the flight, here's some good news. A new sculpture right here in New York City is giving you the chance to take a live look at one of Dublin's most scenic pedestrian plazas. The sculpture, fittingly named The Portal, shows a live stream so you can interact with people more than 3,000 miles away. Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson had the chance to check it out.
Connect!
And just like that, from New York City, this is what the moment looked like in Dublin, Ireland.
Go New York!
A window into each other's worlds more than 3,000 miles apart. Called The Portal, the technology sculptures are meant to connect people through a live stream. This one sits right next to the Flatiron building across the pond on O'Connell Street. The project is the brainchild of artist Benedictus Gilius, who in 2021 installed the first two portals in Lithuania and Poland.
Would provide an unfiltered meeting above all borders, all labels, and that would invite us humans to reconnect.
There is one obvious thing missing, audio. At first you're like, wait, what? But then you quickly realize, even without...
We think just simple communication, whether it's a wave, a hi, a sign, a dance, that's what people are about.
Here in our area, the portal officially came online Wednesday around noon in Dublin during the evening rush. What do you think?
Very good. He's my husband in Dublin. Yes!
Sure enough, the smiley guy with the sunglasses sending his wife the heart signal. It's taken 2 years to get to this point, so why Dublin?
Two cosmopolitan cities that are linked based on immigration, based on culture, literature, so many things.
How about a mother-daughter bond?
Can you see me, baby? I can.
The pair hasn't seen each other in 2 years.
I'm gonna come back. It's such a delight.
The portal will be up and running 24/7 for the next 6 months.
So again, people see this and they're like, this is really cool because again, we have a dumbed down society. But anybody who looks at that would say, what? They say, this looks really weird. A portal? Why isn't it called a portal? Why isn't it just called a giant screen? Why is it in the shape of a circle like every single portal we've ever seen in every movie or television series ever? Well, that's because that's what it's eventually going to look like. And eventually, these types of things are going to be normalized in our society. There's a reason. Again, I talked about the multiverse before that clip, that has become the new normal, right? I don't know, multiverse, right? We even hear Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about multiverse. I'll play a clip for you of Neil deGrasse Tyson, and most people will hear this, okay? And they listen and they just go, oh, wow, it sounds like physics and quantum engineer. And their brain just automatically dismisses it because you've been trained to do that. You're not supposed to understand what he's saying. And he's saying this and people go, well, that sounds fine. That sounds cool. That sounds neat. He's literally talking about bringing over what's on the other side and lifting of a veil. And they're convincing you that this stuff is all scientific. And they're duping you into accepting all these wicked things that they're trying to do out in the open in the name of science. Listen.
You believe this is the only universe. There's not just one universe. There's a multiverse.
We think, when I say we, just the scientific community, physicists who concern themselves with the very early universe, cosmologists, that the laws of physics as we experience them are set in the very earliest stages of the universe. And quantum fluctuations in everything would be responsible for another universe having slightly different laws of physics than ours. Because the quantum fluctuations will take it in a slightly different law of physics direction than our universe. And this would just keep going. Every universe that's born, even if it started out sort of the same in the very first instant, a later instant when other laws of physics manifest, could be slightly different.
So again, they constantly tell us about science. They tell us about black holes. Anybody that questions this stuff, you're not allowed to question it because it's all, oh, that's all, you know, that's Christianity, that's religion. This is science. You can't question science. Well, of course you can't question science because you can't question the lunacy of what the wicked are trying to do, which is lunacy, really, because they're putting all earthly humans at risk here by doing some of the things that they're doing at Cern. But that's the point. They don't care. They look at us as cattle, which most of their books teach, that we're all goyim and we're all cattle to these people. So this is the story that they're giving behind this portal. And again, I believe it's fully here for conditioning. And I do believe fully in what the Bible tells us about the spiritual realm, right? We can look at Bible verses about the spiritual realm. We can look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Spiritual, right? What do people think? What the difference between physical and spiritual is? These things that we can't necessarily see with our own eyes, right? The physical and the spiritual. And remember what I said earlier about the spiritual realm and the digital realm and what they're trying to do with mixing human beings' genetic codes, mixing iron and clay with nanotechnology. This all ties in together ultimately, as human beings' bodies will serve as vessels for demonic entities and demonic forces. But this is the type of stuff that people go, that's all nuts. I can't, what? Then the same people will watch all these shows about, like I've said a million times, grandma visiting, right? A ghost of grandma's coming up. I just did a video on the Wake Up Call channel. I recommend you go and check it out. About AI, about quantum computing, and them openly admitting that these are demons. They even call them little demons, things that you can't grasp. We look at technology and we just go, I don't know. Yeah, what? How does a phone work? Well, and then they go, well, this is how it works, right? It zooms into a tower and this and that. And everybody just goes, hey, that's too much for me to get. As long as my phone works, I don't care. And they don't realize just how dangerous things are getting with what we're allowing these wicked people to normalize in our society. In fact, it's gotten so crazy that they've normalized Planned Parenthood, haven't they? I mean, think about 200 years ago. That would be, that wouldn't be allowed. Now it's like that's a human God-given right, is committing a sacrifice, right? They've normalized so many wicked things. And with technology, Look at all the wicked behavior that's become normalized, the perversions, the who you can communicate with, adults communicating with kids. I mean, it's insanity. And technology is really Satan's ultimate tool, right? So let's take a look at what the story actually says about this portal. And then again, remember all the conditioning that has been done to all of us since we were little involving portals. And I'm sure you could name tons of movies and tons of TV shows that I didn't mention in the comment section, and feel free to do so. So it says, this is why some of us can't have nice things. Surprising absolutely no one. The new Portal street exhibit in New York City, connecting New York with Dublin with a 24/7 live video feed, has already caused chaos, with mischief makers on Ireland's side flashing everything from bear bums to other things I can't say, part interactive sculpture and part webcam. The 3.5-ton portal, I'm surprised it wasn't 3.3, was installed May 8th at the busy Manhattan junction of Broadway, 5th Avenue, and 23rd Street. It opened in tandem with its sister portal in Dublin, positioned facing the city's bustling O'Connell Street. And another thing to keep in mind on top of that is a lot of Christians out there, because they're not taught in their church, are not familiar with the Tower of Babel. The reason that we have nations and different languages is because God himself, our Father, did that, right? The wicked were conspiring against God. They were building this one world tower. I call it a one world tower, but this Tower of Babel, right? And God broke that up, and he stopped them in their tracks, and he divided the nations, and he scrambled the languages. They've always been trying to recreate that. They've always been trying to recreate literally the Tower of Babel, which means it's one world. That's what the notion of a one world government is. And things like this, they're just like, this is another way to connect people with Ireland, connect the countries into one. And ultimately, that's what's going to be happening here, that people have to realize. This is why you might not have noticed, but look again and watch how many news anchors or television characters are now talking with British accents and vice versa. They're filtering all this stuff in, putting in Asian. This isn't about diversity. It's about oneness. And oneness ultimately is about the recreation of the Tower of Babel. So back to the portal that we're all supposed to think is not be suspicious of at all, especially the name portal, right? Built by portals.org, the group behind the project, has created a bridge to a united planet. Okay. So there's that theme I just mentioned, right? A united planet, one. Now, people out there will hear this and they'll go, well, we need a united planet. We need one. God is the one who divided the nations so that the people would not conspire against God. And ultimately, that's what they're doing. They're normalizing sin. They're doing everything they can to tell you, well, if you don't accept, foreigners in your country, you're raped. This is all done by design. And this is what they've been trying to do. And they haven't been able to recreate the Tower of Babel since God divided everyone because they haven't had technology in place. Doesn't mean that they haven't had technology available. It means that people weren't as willing to accept the technology as they are now. Now people can't live without the technology. So now it's the perfect time for them to move forward with their new world order. In the 90s, they just began normalizing the internet and computers out in the open. But I'm sure during other time periods, they probably tried this since they've given us a fake history of the world. Because this is the fallen one's technology. So I'm sure they tried this 200 years ago, and the people probably rose up against it and stopped it from happening, which is why I always tell people, how do we know? How do we know specifically if this is the end? I mean, I feel it's the end times, but how do we not know that people in the past haven't risen up against this and stopped it from happening? Because I personally don't think that God wants us standing here, bending over for the devil and his minions, that we're supposed to just accept this, and this is all the way it's supposed to go down. Yeah, maybe it's the way it's going to go down, but who's to say that this hasn't been tried before and stopped before? Because all history that they've taught us is nothing but lies. And I don't think if people all of a sudden came up, developed this type of technology out of the blue in the, whatever time period you want to say the internet was invented, the 80s, 70s, etc. It didn't just pop up. Someone's like, I just invented this out of the thin air. They obviously have been able to create this not been able to create this type of psychological effect that they have on people where they can convince them to do whatever they want. Right? We have MK Ultra on a mass scale now. So again, a bridge to a united planet. Each structure enables passers by in either city to see but not hear what's happening on the other side 24 hours a day on a massive 8x8 foot screen. So what does that say? Right? What's happening on the other side? Look at the key words there. It's a bridge to a united planet. and be able to see what's on the other side for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Ultimately, this is what they want in our realm. It's just a doorway, a gateway, an open and close, not a close, an open gateway, I should say, an open gateway to different dimension. And people out there, they're going to hear this and they're going to be like, this guy's out of his mind. And then when that's normalized, and however they word it to convince people that it's normal, they won't be like, oh, that guy was right. They'll just believe whatever they tell them. They won't realize they've been conditioned and desensitized to the notion of it. And they'll be like, that's not what this is, because that's how the mind control sheeple operate. That's what they're trained to do. This is MK Ultra on a massive scale, and these people will fall for whatever they're told, and they'll automatically, like little foot soldiers, tell us that we're all nuts. And even when it's out in the open, even if they literally had a sign that said New York City in 2 years that says dimension hop, these people are like, oh, those people weren't. That's not what they were saying. Look, we could jump over here, and these aren't demons. This is that, and this is normal, and it's great. It's like being in a Superman movie or a Spider-Man movie, right? Like they've conditioned with those. People don't even realize with those multiverse films. Right? Do you realize why? Like they bring the old Batman back and then they have the new Batman and they're time hopping and all this stuff. What do you think? They just came up with this idea and all these actors decided they wanted to go back to their roles from 30 years ago? They're forced to do it because they need to normalize this type of stuff. So Michael Keaton comes back, right? The Spider-Man guy comes back. And then all we hear about and we go, isn't this the same plot? Why are all these movies using multiverse? They're using it because there's the people that they're trying to brainwash are the ones who are watching those films. And they're going to fall for everything hook, line, and sinker. So the portal, I'm sure it's just a coincidental name by calling it a portal. And then when they talk about out in the open, they're just talking about, hey, look what people are doing in front of the portal. Oh, they're dancing. Oh, they're flashing. Oh, they're doing ridiculous things in front of the portal. But really what people should be saying is, what is this? Why is this here? What does this have to do with anything? Who gave our government the right to put this up in a street? And now you're being recorded in another country, which ultimately, too, we can look at it from a surveillance perspective, right? That they're just openly recording people in the streets of New York and Dublin, and nobody cares. We can look at it from that perspective because we're already in a surveillance state, so nobody's going to even blink at that. They'd be like, oh, camera's on me, recording me. Yeah, I mean, it's going to condition them more and more into that, but they don't care about that anymore. I mean, some of the pictures are ridiculous. People are standing in front of it doing dance-offs in front of each other. Oh, I'm doing a dance-off in New York with somebody over in Ireland. I mean, this is the mindset of our current society. Right? So you don't think that they could do this? And they've been told that we're all crazy. They've been told that Christians, the Christianity isn't real, but science is real. Right? So really what they do is they just normalize wickedness using the word science, and these people believe it. And they're like, oh, it's not about spiritual demons. All that stuff's not real. Then 5 minutes later, they're going to see the latest horror film, Abigail, or whatever it could be, Megan, right, about an AI demon bot. Every week a new one comes out. They get conditioned in that. They're like, these people are crazy to think demons are real. Right. As they continue to get more desensitized to this type of stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if these pop up in other cities as well. Of course they will. Who am I kidding? They will pop up in other cities. People out there will think this notion is crazy. I'm interested to see what your mindset is on this. I mean, everything they do out in the open is to condition people. So things like this are not in the name of art. Things like this are very clear to see, especially when they word it the way they word it, right? They call it a portal. Well, what's the first thing anyone thinks of when they think of a portal, right? They talk about a united planet. Uniting the planet is what? So they're even mixing in time travel here. And then they talk about showing you what's happening on the other side, right? Very interesting to know. All one needs to do if they don't understand this stuff is look deeper into what Cern's doing. And when you look deeper into what Cern's doing, 101 out of 100 people will go, I don't understand it. Because everything they're telling you doesn't make sense with what they're doing at Cern. It makes no sense to anyone, even engineers, but they have to pretend like they get what they're doing because they don't want to sound dumb. They're like, I get what they're doing at Cern. This guy's a crazy nut job. He doesn't get it. I get it. Why they're doing it, why they're trying to open a black hole. I get it. I understand why. Oh, right, because you want to sound smarter than you are. Nobody understands what they're doing except people who walk in the spirit, because this is spiritual warfare that's taking place. That's exactly what this is. And again, in the Bible, in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1, now the Spirit expressly says that in later times, some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons, which tell us what? Demons are real. Deceitful spirits are real. And guess what? A lot of these deceitful spirits have manifested in a lot of the people in politics, in Hollywood, etc., because that's what they do during these rituals. They manifest these things. Okay? But again, everyone will say, oh, it's completely crazy, especially Christians. They seem the least likely to believe or understand the spiritual realm, because a lot of them are just taught to love everything, smile about everything, to be a Stepford wife, and think everything's perfectly fine. And if you talk about the wicked and the evil that God constantly warns us about, to them, it's a bad thing. To them, it's like, that's not what God wants us to do. Oh, no, God wants us to be completely asleep, because the Bible is a book, it's a blueprint, right? It's a blueprint of how to live, and it's a warning of what is to come and what the wicked are trying to do and plotting and conspiring to do against the people of the earth. And you don't hear many, ministers out there talk about it. You just hear them talk about, hey, what's going on at your house? Are you doing this today? Are you going to the cupcake fest on the weekend? Right? And then they, start playing music on stage and everybody sways back and forth and smiles, which again, if that's your thing, that's fine. But people need to be aware of what the wicked here are trying to do, because I don't think God tells us all this stuff so that we're supposed to sit here and just go, oh yeah, okay, look, they're summoning spirits. I'm going to go have a cup of coffee and go on Instagram. I mean, we're here now for a reason. And it's very clear for those of us who can just have discernment to see what's going on, that a lot of this stuff, if you understand mind control, things like this, again, I'm not saying that this is a portal. People are coming through this portal in New York City. But people now don't even have an attention span, so they'll see this video and they'll be like, he's saying they're coming through a portal in New York City. This is conditioning for what they're really trying to do at places like Cern. And you've seen all the propaganda. I've covered it. How many times does Cern come out and go, we're not trying to open a portal to hell? Right? Awfully, suspicious when these massive places like Cern come out and they get butthurt about people like us talking about what they're really doing, because they know the majority of people have no idea what they're even trying to tell them they're doing. And a lot of people just go, I don't know, or I don't get it, or I don't believe it. So they want to make sure that you don't actually believe what makes more sense than what they spew, which is them trying to bring over what's on the other side, the spiritual realm, and us now in the physical realm, right? In school, when we were young, I don't know if they teach us anymore, but they used to talk about two things happening in the same place at one, in the same space, right? With matter and atom. They'd be like, oh, we used to learn that stuff in school. They'd say, hey, you could be moving this here and something could be moving something on the other side. They're literally were teaching people to be prepared for this back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s about two things happening in the same space and how matter and gravity and all that, well, not gravity, but how matter actually works. But I don't know what they teach anymore. I guess they just teach men that they can have babies in school, but they've been conditioning us for a long time to be prepared for the accepting and the arrival of these beings from another realm, right? They tell you, of course, it's aliens. So they've been conditioning you to believe in that, and then to hold up a sign that says, we come in peace, we love you, alien. But the reality of the matter is aliens aren't real, but demons are. And even Aleister Crowley teaches that in his teachings to these people, to change the name of it so that people aren't suspicious and, there isn't a mass awakening that occurs against this small group of people who worship Lucifer. So instead, they're deceiving people. So when you talk about aliens, they go, oh, okay, aliens. When you go talk about demons, they go, I don't know about that. I don't believe that. Even Christians, I don't believe in that stuff. But they're more likely to believe in aliens, right? Because they're falling for lots of deceptions, many of them happening at once. I thank everybody for being here. If you're still listening, I'm curious to see what you think about this portal in New York. It reminds me a lot of when they brought over the the Ark of Baal, right in plain sight. And everyone went, oh, stop crying about the Ark of Baal, that's no big deal, right? And then we got a portal, and what else? What else are we going to do? All right? And I mean, they're going to literally open a hole in the middle of the city and tell you it's hell, and then be like, it's not really hell, right? And just condition you into leaping in. I mean, I don't know, but it's getting pretty unbelievable out there. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.